We begin this episode by acknowledging the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we record and share these stories. We pay our deepest respects to their elders, past and present, and recognise the wisdom, connection, and culture that have shaped these lands for thousands of years. As we journey beyond the veil, we do so with gratitude, respect, and an awareness of those who walked before us, honouring their wisdom, their connection to the land, and their stories woven into the fabric of time. May we listen, learn, and tread lightly, carrying forward their legacy with integrity and heart. Welcome to Beyond the Veil Australia, where history, mystery, and the unexplained collide. From eerie encounters to cryptid lore, from channeled messages to scientific investigations, we're lifting the veil and stepping into the unknown. I'm Heather, your guide through the shadows, and together we'll unravel paranormal phenomena, strange synchronicities, and the mysteries that refuse to be ignored. Whether you're a skeptic, a seeker, or somewhere in between, this space is for you. Fasten your seatbelt, expand your thinking, and get ready to cross the threshold with Beyond the Veil Australia podcast. In this episode, we step into the world of witch legends and supernatural fear. From mythical enchantresses to real figures accused of dark magic. Who were they? And were their stories mere warnings or glimpses of something far more mysterious? Hello everybody and welcome back to episode 2 of Witch Please, the Legends and the Fears. This is again, I've said this in the first episode that this is one that this topic in particular is something that I really enjoy learning about. It's something that it just connects with me. It's one of those things. But yeah, I'm super excited to be able to get this episode recorded. There had been a bit of a delay. If you'd been following along on social media, about a week ago, on my usual Friday of wanting to record the episode, I'd had a really good day. I'd done a lot of prep work for different things. And I'd planned on recording the episode on the Friday night for release on the Monday. And my husband had come home and was in pretty severe pain. And he sort of thought it might have been like a gastro type bug. And I kind of thought, oh, fuck, we don't need that again in the house. Like, we've just gotten over it. The last thing we need is the same shit again. But unfortunately, the pain kept progressing. Any pain relief we had at home wasn't working. And so I'd contacted Nurse on Call and kind of let them know what was going on and everything like that. And the nurse had kind of said, look, I'd be going to emergency, go and get it checked out. It could be nothing, but you'd rather go and it be nothing than not go and have something happen. So it was probably about 8 o'clock that night. We left to go to the hospital. A friend of ours was looking after our kids because they'd both gone to sleep at this point. And we got triaged really, really quickly, which was great because that's like a world record for emergency departments. And I understand why. Like, I have my mum and my sister are both nurses. A lot through my mum's family have been doctors and nurses. So I totally get and respect why that, emergency is a really tough place to be. I can't imagine some of the things that the nurses and the doctors actually see in emergencies. So, yeah, we were triaged really quickly. They managed to get his pain sort of under control as much as possible. It was quite a long night waiting for test results to come back. I think I'd left at 2:30 in the morning. Probably didn't get back till after 3, but it turned out that he had appendicitis, so he was going to have his appendix out, which ended up having that on the Saturday, but it just meant that Friday night I couldn't record the episode and I just had barely any sleep over the weekend and obviously needed to look after the kids and everything as well. So it really just pushed it out this week. And of course, it was the end of my very first week in my new job as well. So the tiredness was probably amplified much more than I anticipated. So I'm glad to be able to kind of sit down this week and do the episode. Thankfully, my husband's recovering well. He's still pretty sore, which is to be expected, but um, yeah, he's able to sort of get up and move around now. He doesn't need as much of the heavy pain relief as he had when they discharged him. So yeah, today has been planning my second episode and recording it. I've also got part 3 ready to go, so I may even record that in a bit of a bulk recording because I just kind of want to get them up and recorded so I can spend some time editing and have them ready to go. And looking at, in a couple of weeks, having our very first special guest interview. So I'm really, really excited to do that. And the guests that I've got coming on, we'd been talking about this probably for maybe about a month. So we'd been sort of chatting about to wanting to do this, but of course there's just been life happening on the other side, which has just kind of delayed it. So yeah, in a couple more weeks we will have a special guest episode. I'm really, really pumped. The other thing that I did today was reach out to a couple of other potential special guests to see if they'd be interested. Excuse me, see if they'd be interested in maybe coming on and having a chat with me. So yeah, it's been kind of a strangely productive day for the podcast, which is really nice. But yeah, I've got a girlfriend who also has a podcast, and we were talking because I'd actually listened to one of her most recent episodes with special guests. And we were just having a chuckle over some of the things that were said in it. And she goes, "Oh, you're going to have to come on mine." And I'm like, "Well, you're going to have to come on mine." So at some point, we'll try and arrange that too. And she's somebody that I've really built a good friendship and connection with. And funnily enough, we're both very similar with a lot of things as well, very similar sense of humor. Even my husband said at some point, like, "Oh, I've been listening, I've heard this person's voice on their podcast and I thought it was you, but it wasn't you." So like we sort of sound similar, just weird like that, weird things like that. So yeah, but the funny thing was when I mentioned my new job and it turns out that what my role and her role are out in the outside world kind of crossover in terms of our profession. But unfortunately, we're just not anywhere near the same location. So my area where I'll be doing most of my work is not local to her. So we were sort of having a bit of a giggle about that. And I'm like, yeah, well, you never know. We might be able to come on an excursion. And yeah, so it's just funny how things kind of roll like that. And I feel very blessed to not only have been listening to her podcast for quite some time, but to also feel like I can connect with her and we just somehow get each other in some weird way. And we're building a bit of a new kind of friendship, which is really good. And yeah, so there's potentially another special guest of honor that will be able to come on as well. And ditto for me to be able to jump on and chat with her on hers. So it's been, despite all of the shit going on with life, there has been things going on in the background in my brain. And, I don't have any sort of official diagnosis of any neurodiversity, but what I do know is I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which just through my journey and just through professional materials that I've been looking at, complex post-traumatic stress disorder can actually mimic a lot of symptoms very, very similar to some neurodiverse conditions. So, I sort of giggle because my sister's got ADHD, my dad has ADHD, my husband has ADHD, pretty certain both my sons have ADHD. And a lot of people kind of say, I can kind of see where you think you might have it as well, because I do. There'll be, like right now, like I'm sort of rambling off on all these little things because there's a million things going on in my brain. But, there's the other part of me that's like, but I feel like maybe I've also got some autism in there as well for my ability to really hone in and almost become obsessed with something. Like
when I say obsessed, I'm not just talking like just doing a paranormal podcast. Like a classic example, and I don't know why, maybe it's just part of this probably collective trauma that my generation has, but something like 9/11, I was really at one point, I don't know why, it was probably when my first son was a baby, and, you know, we were sort of in this space where we were sort of going into COVID, but we weren't sort of really in COVID. And, you sort of feel a bit lost as it is. But I became quite fascinated with the topic and really looking into a lot of different documentaries and really trying to learn a lot more about it. Anyway, so that's sort of, I'm digressing now, but it's just interesting. So sometimes I think, am I like six of one, half a dozen of the other? Is it that I've got complex post-traumatic stress disorder that's mimicking these things? Is it all of the above? Um, like, yeah, because there are certain things that I kind of, you know, as I'm becoming more aware, that I'm kind of like, that could be it. But, sort of to kind of come back to the point is that even when there's a lot of life going on, my brain's always got things going on in the 60 million other open tabs that are doing all this work behind the scenes. So yeah, I've always got lots of ideas going on, and sometimes it can take me a hot minute to try and physically catch up because it just, sometimes the mental process is a lot faster and quicker and easy to sort through, and then you've sort of got to start physically doing some of these things that when life interrupts, it becomes a lot harder to try and get yourself back into doing it. So yeah, interesting, fun little fact there. But yeah, so here we are. We've finally made it to the following week to be able to record this episode and have it ready to go at the beginning of next week. And I've been doing lots of planning for over the next couple of months. So I'm glad to be able to finally come back and get us back on track, because we have had a few delays with episodes over the recent months, with obviously moving house and all of the shit that goes with that, starting a new job, all of the above. It's all just kind of been a bit of a hot mess sandwich. So yeah, here we are and we're ready to go. So I hope that you guys are all buckled in and ready to touch on some of the legends and I suppose the fears around witchcraft, because I think it's been depicted as unfavorable through pop culture and even through a lot of religious viewpoints as well. So I know we touched on that a little bit in episode 1. So we're sort of going to kind of pick up a bit of that and keep going, but going down the rabbit hole a little bit more and exploring a slightly different angle. Segment 1 is the legendary witches across cultures. Witches come in many forms. Some are feared, some are revered, and some linger between the lines of legend and reality. Throughout history, certain figures have captivated the world with their mysticism, their influence, and their undeniable power. In this segment, we get to explore the witches who left their mark, one from ancient folklore, one from mythic legend, and one who walked among us in history. Were they truly wielders of magic, or simply women misunderstood in their time? Baba Yaga, the Slavic witch of the wilds. Deep in the forests of Eastern Europe, there is a witch unlike any other. She does not wear a pointed hat or ride a broomstick. Instead, she lives in a house that stands on chicken legs, surrounded by skulls, waiting for those foolish enough to seek her out. The trees lean close where she dwells, and the wind forgets its name. Her hut does not rest on stone or soil, but on clawed legs, tall and restless, turning to face you only when summoned with the right words. This is the home of Baba Yaga. She flies not on a broomstick, but in a mortar, steering with a pestle, sweeping away her tracks with a birch broom. Her fence is made of bones, her gate crowned with skulls, and her nose? so long it scrapes the ceiling when she sleeps, stretched across her stove like a creature of smoke and shadow. But who is she really? A devourer of children, a guardian of wisdom, a force of nature that tests the brave and punishes the foolish. Baba Yaga is not just a witch. She is the forest's memory, the threshold you must cross, the question you must answer. And if you listen closely, you might hear her laughter in the rustling leaves, or feel her gaze in the stillness between heartbeats. In one tale, she devours children who stray too far from home. In another, she aids a brave girl named Vasilia, offering fire and wisdom to light her way. Baba Yaga is not evil. She is older than evil. She is the test, the threshold, the wild truth that cannot be tamed. She asks no permissions. She offers no comfort. But if you meet her with courage, she may grant you the gift of transformation. Who seek her must complete impossible tasks, sort grains from ash, wash her laundry in a river of fire, ride the winds and return before dusk. These are not chores. These are initiations. Baba Yaga does not punish the unworthy. She reveals them. And those who pass, they leave changed. Not just wiser, but woken to the truth of their own power. Baba Yaga is the forest personified. She is the storm and the stillness, the rot and the bloom. Some scholars say she was once a goddess, Agaya Baba, the slavic death mother. Others see her as a remnant of ancient nature spirits, guardians of the wild and the water of life. Her hut moves because nature does. Her rules shift because life does. She is the crone who knows the names of herbs and bones, the one who talks and walks with death, devouring souls newly freed. But she is also the one who teaches, who tests, and who transforms. Today, Baba Yaga lives on, not just in tales, but in the bones of modern witchcraft. She is invoked in rituals of protection, transformation, and truth-telling. She is the archetype of the wise woman, the herbalist, the solitary witch who answers to no one. In literature, she's been reimagined as a mentor, trickster, feminist icon. In games and film, she's the shadow behind the curtain, the force that cannot be reasoned with. But in every version, she remains the same. A mirror to our fears, a guide to our becoming. So, if you find yourself lost in the woods and the trees begin to whisper, and the wind carries the scent of birch and bone, she is Baba Yaga, a name whispered in caution, a figure both feared and sought after. Some say she is a monster, an ogress who devours children, while others claim she is the keeper of wisdom, testing those who dare to approach her. Legends say Baba Yaga can grant wisdom, or devour those who seek her out. But was she truly evil, or simply a force beyond human understanding? Wow. I've got the chills. That one, apart from me probably butchering her name, that one was really interesting. And it's really funny is that, even when we touched on it in part one, where we were sort of looking at just different perspectives of witchcraft and its origins. And it's really interesting that the common theme is that there's going to be people that will see the knowledge and the wisdom that comes from witches and healers, but they'll also see the side that supposedly feeds into this depiction of what pop culture calls a witch. And just a little thought that I've just had, which is it potentially that those who respect the craft, those that want to learn it, those that feel they connect with it, see these legends or these women as knowledge holders and teachers, and they see that side of them because they're respectful of it. And those that, tend to degrade it or, just completely dismiss it or really look at it from a lens where there's a religious perspective that says that it's evil, is that are those people that see it that way the ones that feel the wrath for their ignorance. It just a little thought that I'd had there. And, I'm sure everyone's going to have slightly different viewpoints and understandings and even opinions on this, but that's something that's sort of been in my mind a lot while researching this topic, is that there's a lot of conflicting things. And yes, pop culture hasn't helped, but is it to do with whether you're respectful of it or not? If you respect it and you respect those that teach it and bring it and pass it down, that you will experience the positive side of it. And those that dismiss it, degrade it, and basically call it something that it's not, are they the ones that then feel the negative side of that because of their ignorance potentially? Or I'm not quite sure how to word that, but interesting little thought process there. But now we're going to move into another one, Morgan Le Fay, the enchantress of the Arthurian legend. In the tales of King Arthur, there is a sorceress who walks the line between healer and villain. Morgan Le Fay, once a guardian of magic, later feared as a manipulator of fate. Her name is woven into the fabric of Arthurian legend. Some say she was a protector of Avalon, a healer with knowledge beyond mortal understanding. Others claim that she was a deceiver, a woman who used magic to control and destroy. Morgan Le Fay was once a healer and the guardian of Avalon, but history turned her into a villain. So, was she truly dangerous, or simply feared for her knowledge? Morgan first appears in Geoffrey of Monmouth's Vita Merlini, not as a villain, but as a healer. She rules Avalon, the Isle of Apples, where Arthur is taken after his final battle. She is one of 9 sisters, skilled in the arts of transformation and restoration. She knows the names of the herbs and stars. She can mend wounds, shapeshift, and guide souls between worlds. In these early tales, Morgan is a priestess, a bridge between the mortal and the mystical, a keeper of sacred knowledge. But legends are not static, and Morgan Le Fay does not stay still. In later romances, she becomes a threat, a woman of power in a world that fears it. She stirs conflict between Arthur and Guinevere. She seduces knights. She plots to disrupt the throne. Yet her motives are never simple. So, is she vengeful, protective, or simply tired of being dismissed? Morgan Le Fay is not just a character. She is a symbol. To some, she is the Morrigan reborn, a goddess of fate and war. To others, she is Madron, the mother goddess, reshaped by medieval pens. She embodies the duality of magic, healing and harm, wisdom and wrath. In modern retellings, she is reclaimed as a feminist icon, a misunderstood genius, and a woman who dared to wield power in a patriarchal court. Morgan ferries Arthur there, not to die, but to wait. To wait until the world is ready for his return. In this, she is a psychopomp, a guide between life and death, the keeper of the sacred knowledge in a world that has forgotten how to listen. Today, Morgan Le Fay lives on. In novels, she is a heroine. In games, she is the sorceress. In feminist texts, she is the woman who refused to be tamed. Her name echoes through the halls of Avalon, through the pages of Le Morte d'Arthur, through the mist that still clings to the edges of myth. She is not good. She is not evil. She is Morgan. Oh my God. Oh my God. It is so similar to, the last one, and even some of the ones that we covered in part one. Like, there's this real sense of, like, I know I've said it a couple of times, but it's like, is it that she's evil? Is it that she's good? Or is it that she's just fucking fed up with the bullshit and she's challenging it? Therefore, she's demonized for it. And if she's one standing up to the patriarchy, I'm not surprised that they've called her a witch and so on and so forth, Really interesting. I love her already. And now we're going to be looking at the third and final one of these characters for this segment, which is Marie Laveau, the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans. Not all witches come from myth. Some walked among us, shaping history with their craft. Marie Laveau, the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans, was one such woman, feared, respected, and whispered about long after her death. She was more than a legend. She was real. A woman whose influence stretched beyond the physical world, blending voodoo, Catholicism, and Creole traditions into a practice that shaped lives. Born in 1801, Marie Catherine Laveau was a free woman of colour in a city steeped in colonial tension and spiritual convergence. She was a hairdresser by trade, a mother of many, and a devout Catholic, but beneath the surface she was something more. A healer, a conjurer, a spiritual force. Her rituals drew from African voodoo, Catholic saints, and Creole herbalism. She prayed with rosary beads and danced with the spirits. She made gree-gree bags filled with herbs, bones, and secrets, charms for love, protection, and justice. Marie Laveau was said to heal the sick, influence court cases, and sway political decisions. She visited prisoners on death row, prayed with them, and sometimes secured their release. Her home on St. Anne Street became a spiritual centre where the desperate, the powerful, and the curious came seeking her aid. Some claimed she could curse or bless with a single word. Others believed she could appear in two places at once. Whether miracle worker or master of perception, her reputation was undeniable. Marie held ceremonies near Lake Pontchartrain, I keep fucking these up, and Bayou St. John, places where water met spirit. Her rituals involved singing, drumming, offerings of rum and flowers, and spiritual baths made from fresh herbs. On St. John's Eve, She led public ceremonies that drew crowds. She blended Catholic prayers with African cosmology, invoking saints and spirits alike. Her altar was said to glow with candles and sacred objects. Her presence? Calm, commanding, radiant, and that left an imprint on all who met her. Marie Laveau died in 1881, but her legend did not. She was buried in the Golapian family tomb in St. Louis Cemetery No. 1. Even now, her grave is visited daily. People leave offerings, flowers, coins, rum, beads. Some mark 3 X's on the tomb and knock 3 times, whispering wishes into the stone. Though this practice is now discouraged to protect the tomb, the devotion remains. Her spirit is said to linger in dreams, in rituals, and in the heartbeat of New Orleans. Marie Laveau is more than a historical figure. She is an ancestor, a symbol, a spiritual guide. Her name is invoked in rituals of healing, justice, and protection. Her image graces altars and shrines. Her story is told in songs, books, and even whispered prayers. She is not a myth. She is still listening. 3 witches, 1 from folklore, 1 from legend, and 1 from history. Each feared, each powerful, each reshaping the way we understand magic. But what were they? Were they truly witches? Or simply women who refused to be silenced, who wielded knowledge in a world that called it danger? In our next segment, we're going to journey into the realm of pop culture, where witchcraft is reinvented, distorted, and reimagined. From silver screens to spellbooks, we'll explore how stories have shaped the craft and what they reveal about our deepest fears and desires. Witches have always been a part of our stories, from ancient myths to modern films. But how has pop culture shaped our perception of witchcraft? Have we embraced their power, or do we still fear them? From Shakespeare's ominous 3 witches to Hollywood's green-skinned villains, witches have been cast as harbingers of doom, symbols of rebellion, and even heroes. But how much of what we see on screen reflects the truth? How much is simply a reflection of our deepest fears? The witch we picture today, green-skinned, cackling, broom riding, is not born of truth, but of centuries of storytelling with fear and propaganda. But where did this image come from? And what does it say about the societies that created it? In 1606, Shakespeare gave us the weird sisters in Macbeth, 3 witches who speak in riddles and rhyme, foretelling Macbeth's rise and fall. Their name comes from the Old English word meaning fate. But Shakespeare twisted them into something darker, hag-like, androgynous, and sinister. They weren't just seers, they were puppeteers of destiny, and they set the tone for witches as harbingers of doom. From the 15th to the 18th centuries, Europe was gripped by hysteria. Manuals like the Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches, spread like wildfire, teaching how to identify and punish witches. The printing press amplified the panic, turning local fears into continental crusades. Women, especially healers, widows, and those who lived outside the societal norms, were accused of consorting with the devil. They were tortured, burned, silenced. Witchcraft became a crime of gender, of rebellion, and of being too much. In 1939, The Wizard of Oz gave us the Wicked Witch of the West, green-skinned, sharp-nosed, and terrifying. Her image became iconic: the pointed hat, the broomstick, the bubbling cauldron. Hollywood cemented the stereotype: witches as villains, as threats to innocence and order. Even today, horror films echo this legacy, casting witches as dark, dangerous forces. They're often female and also often feared. The broomstick, once a symbol of domestic labour, now a vehicle of flight and freedom. The cauldron, a tool of healing turned into a vessel of poison. And the pointed hat, possibly rooted in medieval fashion, now a mark of menace. These symbols endure, not because they ever were true, but because they were useful. Useful for control, for fear, and for storytelling. The image of the witch has been shaped by centuries of fear. But was it ever truly accurate? Or just a reflection of society's anxieties? While witches were once feared, modern media has begun to reshape their image. No longer just villains, witches are now protagonists, rebels, and even protectors. But what caused this shift? In 1964, Bewitched introduced Samantha Stevens, a suburban housewife who just happened to be a witch. She was played by Elizabeth Montgomery, and Samantha was charming, graceful, and good-hearted. She twitched her nose to tidy the house, solve problems, and occasionally defy her meddling mother, Endora. This was a turning point. Witchcraft was no longer just sinister. It was domestic, delightful, and it was feminine. Samantha wasn't feared. She was adored. I'm going to cut in right there. I loved Bewitched. I absolutely loved it. I always found it really funny, and it was made in the 60s, that's a good 30 years before my time. But growing up, I remember we'd come home from school and, we didn't have cable. We didn't have any kind of digital TV at the time. It was still like old school TV that you had to get up and actually change the channels with your hands. There wasn't a remote. And I remember it would be on at like between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And we'd come home and it'd be like, oh my God, yes, Bewitched is on. And it was just such a great feel-good kind of a show, and I loved it. And I remember thinking, like, oh my God, this is really cool. I want to be able to do that, just the way it was sort of like, oh, the house is a mess. Let me just twitch my nose and everything will be where it is. And often I still wonder that. I'm like, if I could just like wave my finger or do something, I could be like Samantha from Bewitched. And of course, I had to emphasize Endora. I loved her. I thought she was absolutely hilarious. And she just gave zero fucks, She was just like, this is who we are. And why on earth do you want to be like a mortal human being, Samantha? Like, what is wrong with you? I really, really just loved her character. She was really funny, fun, lighthearted, and I could also see where she was a slight pain in the ass. But that's what made that story so good. So yeah, I have to say, like touching on this, I'm really glad that I started with Bewitched first because it is such a great show. And yeah, I just had to get in there and interject. How rude. But what am I saying? This is my podcast. Of course I can interject. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I'm sure there's probably many of you that are listening or viewing on YouTube that also remember that too when you were growing up. So yeah, just had to throw that out there, but we've still got more that we're going to touch on. Fast forward to the late 90s. Buffy the Vampire Slayer gave us Willow Rosenberg, a shy, brilliant teenager who grew into one of the most powerful witches in television history. Her journey wasn't just magical, it was emotional. Willow's arc explored grief, addiction, and the seductive danger of unchecked power. As Dark Willow, she nearly destroyed the world, but through love and vulnerability, she found her way back. Her story showed that magic could be both a weapon and a wound, and that healing was its own kind of spell. The next one, again, read the books, watched the movies, still love it. Harry Potter. In 1997, Harry Potter redefined the cultural image of witches and wizards. No longer villains, they were heroes. Hogwarts became a symbol of belonging, of potential, and of magical adolescence. Hermione Granger, brilliant, brave, and unapologetically clever, became a new kind of witch, one who wielded knowledge as power. Magic was no longer feared, it was aspired to. Also want to interject and say I'm still pretty pissed off I never got my Hogwarts letter. Just saying. In 2013, American Horror Story, Coven took witchcraft into darker, more complex territory. Set in New Orleans, it blended historical persecution with modern survival. The witches of, I can't fucking pronounce this name, but you know what I'm trying to say. The Academy, I'm just going to call it now, were fierce, flawed, and fighting for their place in the world. Themes of race, legacy, and immortality collided in a story that asked, what does it mean to be powerful in a world that wants you erased? Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, 2018 to 2020. Reimagined the teenage witch as a rebel against fate. Raised to serve the Dark Lord, Sabrina refused to sign away her soul. Her story explored autonomy, moral ambiguity, and the tension between light and shadow. Rituals drew from real Wiccan traditions, Yule, Lupercalia, moon magic, while also delving into the occult. Sabrina wasn't just magical, she was complicated. And also to kind of follow on from that, the actual Sabrina with Melissa Joan Hart, there was the movie that kind of set the pilot, and then there was this TV series, and same thing. It was like, yeah, when you were sort of coming of age and you really were like, oh my God, it's the Sabrina the Teenage Witch, yes. Much like pissed off I didn't get my Hogwarts letter, and also kind of pissed off that I couldn't be like Samantha Stevens from Bewitched as well. Also just adding to that, pissed off that I didn't become a witch on my 16th birthday and have to go and live with my aunts. Yeah, anyway, moving on, but just kind of wanted to throw that in there as well, because I'm sure there's probably a lot of you listening that remember Sabrina as way back when. This Sabrina is one that's a lot more new. Today, witches in media are symbols of resistance, reclamation, and radical selfhood. They blur the line between myth and reality. They challenge norms, and they invite us to ask, what is power? And who gets to wield it? Pop culture has made witchcraft more accessible, fueling modern communities, spiritual practices, and aesthetic movements. From witch talk to spell books on bookstore shelves, the craft is no longer hidden. It's actually celebrated. Witches in media have evolved from the feared villains to powerful figures. But does this shift reflect reality? Or is it simply another reinvention of the myth? Hollywood has painted witches in bold strokes: storm callers, potion makers, and curse casters. But behind the spectacle lies a quieter truth. What parts of this mythology are rooted in real-world practice? and what belongs purely to the realm of fantasy. Herbal magic. Long before the word witch was whispered in fear, healers and wise folk turned to the earth. Mugwort for dreams, rosemary for remembrance, nettle for protection. Each plant carried lore, lineage, and purpose. Today's cinematic spell ingredients often echo these of ancient remedies, though stripped of their cultural context. Tarot cards shuffled under candlelight, astrological charts drawn with care, bowls of water used for scrying. These are not mere theatrics. They are tools of reflection and revelation, practiced across cultures for centuries. Divination offers insight into the unseen, helping practitioners navigate both inner and outer worlds. In films like The Craft, characters manipulate energy with dramatic flair. But in real-world mysticism, energy work is subtle and sacred. From Reiki to ritual movement, practitioners channel intention, emotion, and spiritual force, believing that the energy flows through all things and can be shaped with care. The image of a witch soaring across the moonlit sky is iconic, but it's also symbolic. In early witch trial records, broomsticks were associated with fertility rites and ecstatic rituals, not literal flight. The broom became a scapegoat, a misunderstood emblem of feminine power and freedom. Snap of the finger magic may thrill on screen, but real spell work is a process. It requires preparation, focus, and emotional resonance. Rituals unfold slowly through words, gestures, and sacred space. Magic, in its truest form, is a conversation with the unseen. It's not a command. The trope of vengeful witch casting dark spells is rooted in fear and misunderstanding. While hexes exist in folklore, most modern witches reject harm-based magic. Their craft centers on healing, justice, and protection, guided by ethics, intention, and ancestral wisdom. The veil between myth and reality is thin. What we dismiss as fiction may carry echoes of forgotten truth, whispers from the past waiting to be heard. Witches have shapeshifted through time, feared, revered, and misunderstood. Pop culture has transformed them from sinister caricatures into symbols of empowerment. But as stories evolve, one question lingers. Are witches merely characters in our collective imagination? Or is there a truth buried in the legend? One thing that I found really interesting with all of that is, again, it kind of comes back to those perceptions. It's been depicted by one group of people that see it as one thing, and suddenly we're getting a taste for what it actually was, what it started as. And, yes, I know that there's always going to be an element of what's like storytelling that's involved in that in a completely polar opposite direction as to what the stories were that have been passed down through negative connotations. It's going to be the same with pop culture. They're going to really try and shift it completely to the other side. So I think it's probably, for me anyway, I kind of see it as a really good balance in between. I think we've had a really, really negative view, and then we've had a really positive one, and I feel like it's just gone from one end of the scale to the other, and I think that it lays somewhere more within the middle where I've mentioned it before, but it's about intention. If you're intending for negative things, then that's going to be a result. If you're intending for positive things, that's going to be a result. Just to keep it really, really simplistic, but that's my perception. Everyone's going to have different knowledge, different perceptions of these things, but I've found it really fascinating exploring this particular topic a lot more, not just in what the history that we do know, but also then being able to kind of look a bit deeper. So yeah, that was segment 2. Segment 3, curses, hexes, and supernatural encounters. Witchcraft is not just about spells. It is about energy, intention, and sometimes fear. Throughout history, there have been stories of curses that changed lives, hexes that lingered for generations, and rituals that had consequences no one could explain. Some believe curses are nothing more than superstition, stories crafted to warn, to control, and to instill fear. Others claim that they have felt their effects firsthand, watching as misfortune unfolded in ways too precise to be a mere coincidence. Now we step into the realm of infamous curses, lingering hoaxes, and rituals that defied explanation. Were these events shaped by belief, or is there something truly supernatural at play? Infamous curses and hexes. The Bell Witch Curse, a haunting linked to a vengeful spirit. In the early 1800s, nestled in the quiet hills of Tennessee, the Bell family lived on a life of simple routine, but something stirred in the shadows. Something unseen, unheard, until it wasn't. It began with soft knocks, soft and deliberate knocks, then whispers, low, chilling, impossible to trace. Objects moved on their own, doors slammed, and the air grew heavy. The Bell Witch had arrived. She called herself Kate, and she wasn't just a ghost, she was a force. Kate fixated on John Bell, the family patriarch, and his daughter Betsy. She scratched and she slapped. She whispered threats in the dead of night. Betsy's engagement crumbled under the weight of the torment. And then, in 1820, John Bell was found dead. The spirit claimed responsibility, and just like that, she vanished. But the legend didn't. Some say the Bell Witch was the vengeful ghost of Kate Batts, a woman wronged in a land dispute. Others believe she was never a person at all, but a manifestation of guilt, fear, and superstition, a psychic echo in a community's shadow. The more people feared her, the stronger she became. And even now, visitors at the Bell Witch Cave report strange phenomena, whispers, cold spots, and the feeling of being watched. The Bell Witch wasn't just a haunting. She was intelligent, malicious, and personal. And some say she still lingers. Was she seeking justice or something darker? Was she summoned by belief alone? And if belief can conjure such a force, what else might be calling forth? The Hope Diamond, one of the world's most famous gems, but behind its brilliance lies a legend of misfortune, a curse that followed its owners for centuries. The story begins in mystery. The diamond, as they say, was stolen from a Hindu temple, plucked from the forehead of a sacred statue, a desertion, and with it came a curse. Anyone who possessed the gem would suffer, not just misfortune, but ruin. Its trail is littered with tragedy. Marie Antoinette, said to have worn the diamond, was executed during the French Revolution. Later, owners faced bankruptcy, suicide, and deaths that defied explanation. One man was mauled by wild dogs. Another drove off a cliff. Diamond changed hands again and again, each time leaving sorrow in its wake. Some say the curse is nothing more than a legend, a tale spun by time, embroidered with drama. But others believe the diamond carries something more, a lingering energy. Today, the Hope Diamond rests in the Smithsonian, untouched by misfortune. Perhaps because it no longer belongs to anyone. Is the diamond truly cursed? Or has history simply woven a tale of tragedy around it? Can an object carry sorrow? Can beauty conceal danger? And if curses are real, do they cling to the possession or to a belief? The Hexes of Salem, a town cloaked in legend, grief, and unresolved echoes. In the year 1692, fear became law, and suspicion became a sentence. It began with strange behaviour, young girls convulsing, crying out, and naming names. Puritan community, steeped in religious fervour and distrust, saw the devil's hand in every shadow. Accusations spread like wildfire, and the flames consumed more than reputations. Over 200 people were accused of witchcraft. 20 were executed, 19 by hanging, and 1 pressed to death beneath stones. Their crimes? Speaking out. Living differently, some of the accused cursed their abusers with their final breath, not out of malice, but desperation. A last act of defiance, a refusal to be erased. And some say those curses stuck. Visitors to Salem report strange phenomena, cold spots near the old Gallows Hill, whispers in the Witch House Museum, a sense of being watched, even when alone. But is it a haunting or history? Some believe the energy left behind is not a curse, but a residual imprint. Grief etched into the soil, pain woven into the architecture, a psychic scar that refuses to fade. Others say the spirits of the accused still linger, not seeking vengeance, but recognition, to be remembered not as villains, but as victims. Salem today is a paradox, a place of privilege for witches and seekers, a town that profits from its past while still reckoning with it. It's a hub of mysticism, ritual, and reclamation. But beneath the tarot readings and candle shops, the ground still hums. Some say Salem's accused witches left behind more than history. They left behind something unseen, something that watches, waits, and whispers. Can a place remember pain? Can injustice echo across centuries? And if belief shapes reality, what happens when a town believes in its own ghosts? Because in Salem, the story isn't over. Magic is not a guarantee. It's a conversation, a risk, a reach into the unknown. And sometimes the unknown reaches back. These are stories that have been inspired by folklore, rituals performed with care, with hope, with intention. And yet something went wrong. The protection spell of Eliza Quinn, Cornwall, 1913. Eliza Quinn lived alone on the edge of Bodmin Moor, a seamstress by trade, but known in the whispers as a hedge witch. When a string of thefts struck her village, she performed a protection ritual. Candles, salt, and a charm stitched into her coat lining. Something shifted. Her cottage grew cold. The fire refused to stay lit. She heard voices, soft, pleading, coming from the attic, where no one had ever lived. Villagers claimed Eliza had miscast the spell, that her fear had summoned not protection, but attention. She left the village weeks later, Her cottage remains abandoned. Locals say the wind still speaks her name. Cursed Mirror of Anya Vetrova, Kiev, 1889. Anya Vetrova inherited a mirror from her great aunt, a reputed healer and mystic. The mirror was carved with symbols Anya could not decipher. She placed it in her bedroom. That night she dreamt of fire, of a woman screaming in a language she didn't know. She woke with scratches on her arms and a fever that lasted 3 days. She tried to sell the mirror, and it shattered in transit. She buried the pieces in a forest. The next morning, they were back on her doorstep. Folklore in the region speaks of memory mirrors, objects that absorb trauma and reflect it back. Anya moved to Warsaw, and she never spoke of the mirror. The Summoning of the Hollow Circle, Appalachia, 1976. In the hills of West Virginia, 4 friends gathered in an abandoned church. They sought guidance, answers about love, loss, and the future. They lit candles, drew sigils, spoke names they found in a book that smelled of ash. The air grew still. One candle extinguished. A shadow moved across the stained glass. After the ritual, they reported sleepless nights. One saw a figure standing at the foot of her bed. Another heard knocking, always 3 times, at 3:33 a.m. Local law speaks of hollow circles, rituals that can call not ancestors, but echoes. Things that listen and things that linger. The church has since collapsed, but the foundation remains. And some say if you stand there at dusk, you'll hear footsteps behind you. Some say curses are just superstition, but I've seen what happens when energy turns. It doesn't ask permission, it just arrives. Magic is not light and intention, it's shadow, it's consequence, and sometimes it's a mirror, reflecting what we didn't know we carried. Witches have haunted our legends and shaped our fears for centuries. Sometimes feared, sometimes revered, always lingering in the space between reality and myth. But are they merely characters in a cautionary tale? Or are they echoes of something deeper? From whispered hexes to protective charms, the stories we tell reveal more than superstition. They reveal belief. And whether you see witchcraft as folklore, spirituality, or something unexplainable, one thing is certain: it has endured. Not because it was proven, but because it was felt. And perhaps that's where its power truly lies. Wow. Some of those folklore stories, I had the chills when I was reading them. And I really wanted to kind of like interject and say that, but I was like, dude, don't kill the moment. Like, this shit's like, we're smooth sailing through this right now. Like, just like let people get the chills. Let people sit there and shit themselves at how creepy some of these are and how cool they are at the same time. So yeah, I just had to throw that in at the end because, whoa, there was some chills going on there. But I don't know what you guys think of those, but I feel like today's episode's really been kind of that deep dive into like folklore and the stories and just different things about pop culture and kind of like demystifying the perception of witches and witchcraft. It's been one that's given me chills a bit this time, because there's a lot of really good creepiness in some of those stories. And I tell you what, putting it together, I was like, man, you could almost do like an episode on each one of those stories with how cool and creepy they are. But I was like, hey, why not just put all 7,000 of them into one episode and scare the shit out of people for the whole thing? Like, why not? But now that we are closing episode 2, just a little bit of info about what to expect in part 3 of witchcraft. Legends speak of witches who shape destiny, bend energy, and weave unseen forces into reality. But what happens when the craft crosses into the paranormal? In episode 3, we step into the shadowed realm of the spirits summoning dark magic and rituals that defy explanation. Were these manifestations of belief? Or were they something far more supernatural? I hope that you've enjoyed this episode today. If you are following along on YouTube or Spotify, please leave a like or a comment. Let me know what you really enjoyed about the episode today. And if you're not already, please head over to @BeyondTheVeil Australia on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and give us a follow and check out everything that we've got on our social media pages. Thanks again, guys. It's been awesome to be back and to finally get this episode recorded. I'm really looking forward to coming back and recording episode 3 because there was some awesome stuff in there. So I cannot wait to be able to share it with you all. Thank you all again. Bye.